Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Whether in the office or on the road, work with your community or coach to practice great behavior and produce great organizational results. Capture real-time behavior practice from competency-based development plans and invite feedback in an elegant and simple application. Take Top Performance Mobile by going to resultpal.com/fast and getting a $750 performance package for free. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited to share with you the guest that's on the show today because he actually came to me from one of my how in the heck did I get here moments. It was a situation where I started doing some research and reading, and I found his TED Talk. I found it so fascinating and intriguing in regards to what he was sharing, as well as his backstory, that I invited him to be on the show, and he accepted. John Tarnoff was born and raised in New York, but has lived in Los Angeles since graduating college in 1973. In the 70s and 80s, he developed and produced movies for Warner Brothers, Columbia, MGM, and others, and founded a technology startup during the 1990s tech bubble, and then shifted back into entertainment as the head of show development for DreamWorks Animation, where he led the artistic leadership training and university outreach programs. Inquisitive, creative, unconventional, and an early adopter, John has held 18 positions over his career as talent agent, studio executive, film and game producer, talent manager, biz development manager and consultant, and program developer. He has the distinction of having been fired 39% of the time in his career, a statistic that has ironically enabled him, or forced him, depending on your point of view, to figure out the reinvention process. John Tarnoff is a career reinvention coach, speaker, and author who helps his fellow baby boomers transition to meaningful and sustainable careers beyond traditional retirement. He currently co-runs a graduate management program for Carnegie Mellon University. In 2012, he developed the Boomer Reinvention Coach Curriculum to help his generation stay active, engaged, relevant, and solvent. He is the author of the forthcoming book, Boomer Reinvention, How to Create Your Dream Career After 50. John holds a master's in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica and a BA magna cum laude from Amherst College. John Tarnoff, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am ready, Jim. Thank you so much for that great intro.
John, thanks for being here, and I really appreciate it. I've given our Legion a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Well, I think you kind of nailed it. My current passion is really helping the boomer generation, my fellow boomers, transition through this very uncomfortable period that we are having post 50, where the what's now become the myth of retirement seems to be staring us square in the face. And the idea that we grew up with, which was you get a good education, you get a good job, you work for 40 years, and you get handed your retirement and sail off into the sunset. Well, that just didn't turn out the way we thought it was going to turn out. We got a few curveballs thrown our way in the interim. And a lot of us, particularly after the recession, where people lost about a third of the value of their retirement accounts, they lost a third of the value of their homes, many people still underwater with their homes, and facing increasing downsizing, the loss of defined benefit pensions in corporate America, which has dropped double digits percentage-wise from what it used to be. All of these statistics which are pointing us in one direction, which is that we're going to have to keep working beyond age 65 if we're going to be able to survive. And I could go into scarier statistics about that, to reinforce the fact that we're in a bit of a crunch.
It's really interesting, John. I mean, all the messages that you're bringing in regards to this particular issue. I mean, we could easily spend a lot of time talking about why. We can talk about, this, that, and the other. But the fact is that, and you and I had the opportunity to chat about this a moment ago, is that it's affecting all different age groups. I have several of my friends who are now finding themselves to where they had some senior leadership roles. Those are no longer, roles that are available. They were, let go, whatever, the case may be, downsized. You had, a situation where companies merged and now those extra people have to go, somewhere. I mean, all these different factors that start coming into play.
It's happening all over.
Exactly. And so I think too, that it's really important for us when you started talking about the planning piece, is to put our proper planning in perspective. So when you start talking about fast leader, and really what we try to bring out is that in order for us to be able to move onward and upward faster, we've got to do some things correctly. And part of that is our planning process and investing in ourselves. And so when you start thinking about all the elements that you were referring to, and so for me, like for example, I am not even considering or planning, U.S. Social Security to be part of any of my income after I retire. I just don't think it's at some point it has to cease to exist when you start looking at the number of payees, versus the people who are actually trying to draw. It's going to flip flop here in a few years. And it's already supposedly, underwater. So I'm not even planning for that. So what are some of the things that people should be thinking about so that essentially they get ahead of that reinvention curve, if you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I think the fundamental thing which I talk about to the folks in my generation, and I think this really is no surprise to anyone who has been building their career over the last 10, 20 years, is that we need to be much more entrepreneurial in the way we look at our roles. And this is actually something that I say to my grad students in terms of them getting out into the marketplace and getting their first job. And that is that you never think of yourself, you never want to think of yourself as an employee under the direction of a supervisor. You always want to think of yourself as a consultant providing value to a client. And that kind of distinction for someone who has been an employee and a, dare I say it, wage slave for the last 20 years, maybe in one company for 20 years, that can be a very disturbing and intimidating prospect. So the reinvention methodology that I've been developing and using is an attempt to cut through that and to help people realize and define their value both to themselves and to others, and to reach out to make the connections necessary to create that next career, whatever that may be. And I'm not a traditional career coach who uses assessments and traditional buckets and boxes to slot people into jobs and job descriptions. I just don't think that works anymore. And I'm seeing that in the HR world, that is being thrown out a lot. So my perspective is that reinvention on a career has to happen from the inside out. You've got to figure out what it is that you like to do, what it is you're good at, what it is that you feel good about getting up in the morning and doing no matter what every day, and building from there.
I think you bring up some really good points, and they're extremely important for all of us to kind of, I don't want to say heed, but really kind of pull in and use it as part of our overall planning processes, to think of ourselves as our own entity, regardless of whether or not, we're employed. And definitely many of us, if we do find ourselves, unemployed, that we can potentially easily become employable, even if it's, ourselves, we employ ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's a great mindset. So I know, you and I, seeing you speak, talking about, and you sharing some of the stories within your TED Talk and all the work that you've been doing, and all of, I'm sure, the incredible stories about people, finding and having to reinvent themselves under pressure, right? That you've had to seek and find inspiration, as well as 39% of the time you finding yourself,
right,
needing to reinvent and move. And we like to use leadership quotes in the show in order to talk about inspiration. Is there one or two that you can share with us that does that for you?
Yep. I knew you were going to ask me this question, so I did a little digging, and I do like to collect quotes. I actually am in the process of collecting a set of applicable quotes to the Boomer reinvention process, which one of these days, when I hit 365, I'm going to publish a calendar. But in the interim, I found a really applicable quote from the Roman philosopher Seneca, and here it is. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. So I think the value for that, for me, for someone who is particularly someone who has been sitting at a desk, and I don't mean to be, demeaning of the value that you can provide as a manager in a corporation and in a kind of a tribe of people that you're working with successfully. But I think we do kind of tend to get complacent, and it becomes more difficult to dare. And we create all sorts of conditions and circumstances, ideal circumstances, that we would like to have set up before we dare. Actually, the way the world works, you got to just forget about that. You have to dare first, and then things will actually start falling in place.
That's a very good point that you bring up. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day talking about, we all get sucked in by marketing hype. Me too. When we all do it.
Sure.
And one of the huge areas of hype associated with something that you're referring to is this whole entire concept of taking control. Take control of your weight. Take control of your personal finances. Take control of your retirement. Take control. Take control. And when you start thinking about just that concept of take control, if I'm taking control of safety, if I'm taking control of not stepping outside, in fact, what I'm doing is creating, a worse scenario for me, and I control nothing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very, very true.
It's the releasing that's going to make the difference. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now, also one of the things that we do on the show is we talk about getting over humps, because the beauty about story is that we get the chance to hopefully educate ourselves and move onward and upward faster by learning about situations where people have had to get over their own humps. So it's something weird that happens in our body. So we definitely want your help to get over some of these humps that some of us are facing, maybe some of our friends are facing, maybe even you have faced in regards to the things that you've gone through. Is there a story that you can share with us that will help us get over faster?
Well, I'll tell you a story of a particular challenge that I had to get through when I had my startup, and I hope this will maybe it'll inspire some people. It will certainly, I think, reassure people that it is possible to get over incidents that where you really feel that the deck is stacked against you. I had a tech startup in the 90s that I had founded with a partner, and we were developing a really interesting product around artificial intelligence using animated characters. So if you think about what you get with Siri on the phone, this was a character. This was an animated character on the screen that had that kind of artificial intelligence engine behind it, and it was very innovative. And we had a big deal with Sprint that we rolled out in the beginning of 2001, where we created a customer service character for their website. And around the middle of 2001, the entire tech sector just fell apart. The entire thing collapsed. And so everything within a period of 2 or 3 months just fell apart. The Sprint deal fell apart. They pulled back. All of our secondary financing at our startup pulled back. We started laying off staff. And by the time August, September rolled around, my lead investor came to me and he said, look, we need to bring someone in to help you guys raise some money and turn this thing around and restate the value proposition. So we found a guy, came out of Wall Street, really smart, young guy, had been in the startup field. And he started working, trying to restructure this and bring new funding into the company. And we were running out of cash. But he was working very hard. And one Wednesday afternoon, I'll never forget this, he calls my partner and me together, and we sit in my office, and he says to us, you guys are not going to be able to meet payroll on Friday. We had probably about 25 people on the payroll. He said, I've got the money lined up, but there's one condition. You guys have got to go. And you can imagine, we didn't see this coming. Here's a guy who comes in, who's supposedly working for us to try to help us save the company. And he's decided he's going to steal the company. So we were completely shocked. He got up, walked out of the office, left the office. And basically, I think he thought that when he came back on Friday morning, we were going to hand over the keys to the company. Instead, my partner and I got on the phone and we started dialing for dollars, as they say. That Wednesday night, all day Thursday night. By Friday morning, we had raised enough money to meet our payroll. There was money in the account. And this guy walked back in the office and we told him to turn right around and get the hell out. And we used some more indelicate language than that. But it was a real shock. It was a real trial for us to dig deep and to figure out how we were going to save this thing that we had worked at for, I guess at that point, 5 or 6 years. This was our baby. Now, in retrospect, the company still went belly up about a year and a half later. We just couldn't keep it sustained, but we were able to hold our own. And I think the lesson for me is that you never really know what you're capable of until you're confronted with the challenge. And you got to believe in yourself, right? Through all of the upturns and downturns, at the end of the day, you just have to believe in your ability to weather the storm, to reach out to the people that you need who are willing to help you, to trust yourself, and to get through it.
Well, thanks for sharing that, John. I'm sure that had to be a tough time going through that. Not only those few days where you were trying to raise the funds, but the remaining year and a half until you had to move on.
It was a really tough time. But I'll tell you, the value of that and the value of tough times for all of us, and I'm sure your listeners who have been through similar straits will agree with me. These are the experiences that you look back upon and are thankful for because of the strength and the resilience that they allow, that they permit, or that become the foundation for the way that you move forward. And I could not have done anything that I have done since then without having gone through that adversity.
Definitely makes us stronger on the back end, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, John, I know you got a lot of things going on. When you started thinking about, grad students, I think you have a daughter going to grad school, author, book, speaker, coach, all these things. If you just start thinking about, just one thing that gives you a whole lot of excitement that you've set some goals around, what are some of those goals?
This really gets back to my mission statement for what I'm doing with the Boomer Reinvention Program. And I don't have it in front of me, and it does tend to shift a little bit, but basically the mission that is driving me forward now is to help my fellow boomers find sustainable and meaningful careers past 50. And that is I kind of wake up in the morning often and I go, is that still working? And it is. It continues to sustain me. And, when I was, I guess, maybe as far back as my 30s or 40s, when I was thinking about the future, and it was not particularly clear, and I was working in a business which I loved and still love. It's a great business. The creative and the managerial aspects of actually making movies and TV shows and content is a lot of fun. Creative business is great fun. But I always felt that education and sharing my experience and helping others was where I was going. And that ultimately that was, and I think for many, if not most of us, ultimately our value as we get older is to be able to help others come up the ranks, come up the rungs of the ladder, and share our experience and mentor other people. So to the extent that we can kind of visualize that as our future, I think is very, very helpful and provides a real sense of purpose to us going forward. It's a context. It's really a context of being able to see, well, how is this experience today, or this success that I'm experiencing, or these challenges that I'm experiencing, how is all that going to play out down the road? What are those lessons, and how could I use this to help people in the future? I'm kind of giving you a long-winded answer to the question, but it explores some of the dimensionality of what's getting me up in the morning and giving me a reason to keep going.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best.
Thank you.
Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Developing your company's talent and leadership pipeline can be an overwhelming task, but your burden is over. With ResultPal, you can use the power of practice to develop more leaders faster. Move onward and upward by going to resultpal.com/fast and getting a $750 performance package for free. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, John, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. John Tarnoff, are you ready to hoe down?
I am.
What do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
There is nothing holding me back except myself.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Don't take things personally.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Always listen for the subtext.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
I'm a good listener.
What would be one book from any genre that you'd recommend to our listeners?
This is going to come out of left field. There's a book called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon.
Okay, Fast Leader listeners, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/John Tarnoff. Okay, John, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you have been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skill you have now back with you. But you can't take everything. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
I would tell myself to find a mentor. And the reason for that, and this is certainly based on my personal experience looking back now, is that I did not seek out as much guidance as I should have, as I would have liked to have. And I was afraid to reach out and ask questions and ask for guidance because I didn't want to appear foolish. And that was a big mistake.
John, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader listeners how they can connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. The easiest way to do this is through my website, which is johntarnoff.com, JOHNTARNOFF as in Frank.com. And contacting me through the form on that site. You can also find me on Twitter at John Tarnoff, and check out my Facebook page, Boomer Reinvention, one word.
John Tarnoff, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.